We're going to call this 12:31 meeting to order. Start off with a roll call vote, please.
Dana? Here. Skanes?
Here.
Cooper?
Here.
Milton?
Here.
Fenton?
Here.
Whitus?
Here.
C?
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum for the study session.
Thank you. We'll start with item number 1, approval of the minutes of October 22nd.
Before we got to do another roll call. So
Madam
we're,
Clerk? Oh, go ahead.
so we're going to move into the TDD meeting. So that was the regular Board of Aldermen. And so for a roll call for the property owners of the Branson Landing Transportation Development District, just for clarification, it's exactly the same as Board of Aldermen, but I need to call that roll again. Dana? Here. Skanes?
Still here.
Cooper?
Here.
Milton?
Yep.
Fenton?
Here.
Whitus?
Here.
C. Thank you.
Now we have item number 1, approval of the minutes, October 22nd, 2020, TTD Property Owners Meeting. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Property Owners Meeting on October 22nd, 2020.
So move. Second.
Any discussion from the Board of Aldermen?
Just a question to the clerk. Is it for the people that were there at the meeting, the clerk, or is it for the whole Board of Aldermen?
You can vote on it as a whole Board of Aldermen if you feel comfortable doing that. It's just like any other minutes that we go through like that.
Thank you, ma'am.
And everybody gets, all 7 vote because everybody's on this TDD board.
Okay.
So I'm going to call for a voice vote.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone
Opposed, same
opposed?
sign.
A little hesitant.
Ayes have it. Item number 2, election of 2 members of the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing Transportation Development District. I will now entertain a motion to vote 61 of the city shares in the Branson Landing TDD to elect Alderman Bill Skanes, and 61 of the city shares in the Branson Landing TDD to elect Alderman Jamie Whitus to the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing TDD for the term that expires April 2024.
So move.
Second? Okay, we have a first
Second.
and a second. Any discussion from the Board of Aldermen? Hearing none. Call for a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the city has a sole property owner within the Branson Landing TDD has elected Alderman Bill Skanes and Alderman Jamie Whitus to the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing TDD with terms to expire April 2024.
Okay, that concludes the items scheduled for the Branson Landing TDD Property Owners Meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the Property Owners Meeting.
So move. Second.
Have motion approved in second. Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The meeting of the Branson Landing TDD property owners is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming. No. Okay. This will be a meeting of the Board of Directors, Branson Landing Transportation Development District. The joint meeting of the Board of Directors for the Branson Landing Transportation Development District is now called to order. Roll call vote.
Denham? Present. Skanes?
Here.
Cooper?
Here.
Milton?
Here.
Fenton?
Here.
Whitus?
Here.
C?
Yes.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So item number 1, approval of the minutes of October 22nd, 2020 TDD Board of Directors meeting. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the TDD Board of Directors meeting minutes of October 22nd, 2020.
So move. Second.
Any discussion from the board? We'll have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And just to clarify our ayes, are Alderman Skanes, Mayor Milton, Alderman Whitus, and Alderman C. We good with that? And the others are being, I cannot vote at this time, they're not on it. So I just want to clarify that vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Item number 2, Resolution 2021-01, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing Transportation Development District electing an interim director to fill a vacated term. Madam Secretary, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is a resolution 2021-01, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Branson Landing Transportation Development District electing interim directors to fill vacated terms.
Do I have a motion electing Clay Cooper, Cody Fenton, and Ruth Denham as interim directors and adopting Resolution 2021-01?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion from the Board of Directors?
So these are filling terms of other aldermen that were on there, so you're just filling vacated terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Again, that's Alderman Skanes, Mayor Milton, Alderman Whitus, and Alderman C. Thank you. And at this time now, the full board is on the property owners, directors, and so everybody is free to vote at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So item number 3, Resolution 2021-02, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Branson Landing Transportation Development District appointing officers of the district. Madam Secretary, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is a resolution of 2021-02, a resolution of the Board of Directors, Branson Landing Transportation Development District, appointing officers of the district, and we will need a motion to fill in those names.
So do I have a motion appointing officers and adopting the resolution?
Do we do one at a
So-
time, or
It's up to you how
how do
you
you
want
want
to.
to do it?
I move to appoint Larry Milton as the chairperson and executive director as mayor. Vote on those independently?
If you, it's up to you if you want to do it as a slate, or would you like to do them separate?
Whatever's easier. Do a slate.
I can't make a motion to put myself into vice chair. That's
I'll make a motion to appoint Mayor Milton as the chairperson, Alderman Skanes as the vice chairman, Alderman Fenton as the secretary, and Alderman C as the treasurer.
And adopt Resolution 2021-02.
And adopt Resolution 2021-2.
Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion from the Board of Directors? Hearing none, let's have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Let's show that a 7-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, Resolution 2021-03, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing Transportation Development District approving the budget for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. Madam Secretary, would you please provide an introduction to this item?
Your Honor, this is a resolution 2021-03, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Branson Landing Transportation Development District approving the budget for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022.
Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2021-03?
So move, sir. Second.
Any discussion from the board?
Yes, sir. What is the amount of this budget? Kind of important.
It's attached to the item.
Only attachment I see is blank.
Yeah.
Ribs, that's what it is, right?
It's the last.
You're not paid in
It's the
full.
last page. On here.
Oh. On your iPad.
I didn't bring
I
it.
have an iPad. So the budget is on the online version, and some here have an iPad and some don't.
speaking to the computer guru here now.
Yeah, you are. Lost it.
So the 2022 budget, there's this, the sales tax projected revenue on that is $1,320,739 with $211 other contribution. Total collection is at $1,320,000 or $320,950. There's legal fees involved of $640,475 and administrative fee of $3,900. So with a total disbursement projected at $1,324,850. And there's a transfer in of $3,900. And I don't know if Jamie's here, but that has gone, that came from the finance department to our legal, TDD legal department.
Well, we need Jamie to answer the question, where did the transfer in? What fund that came from?
Yes. I'm sorry, I do not do that budget.
Can it be displayed up here, the budget? I can actually use the pointer now. No, better not.
I'd be okay with approving this with the understanding that the board will be provided with the information of which fund the 3,900 came from.
There it goes.
Board have any
Thank
other?
you. Chad is getting us there, so it's the next. There you go. That's what I was reading off of. If that's okay, we can get that explanation to you and provide it to you. Is that fine?
I'm okay with that, Mayor.
So the collections was $1,320,000, expenses were $1,324,000, so it's roughly $3,900 short. So we transferred the money from one of the other funds to balance that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Jamie is ill today,
okay.
but Stacy is on her way in.
Let's see.
Stan, could you define EATS again, please, for those who not seen that before?
Economic activity.
Stand down there.
Stands there.
I don't know if he heard you.
What's EATS?
Define EATS.
Comes from the part of the TIF.
Stand your mic.
Trying to think what the acronym
Stand. Stand.
Can't hear you.
It's part of the TIF program. I apologize. I'm trying to remember what the acronym actually stands for.
I think it's economic
Economic
activity.
ac- that-
Taxes.
activity.
Isn't that being taken out of there? It's a removal from that fund
Right,
because of that.
because of the TIF.
Yeah,
Because of the TIF.
yeah. It's an overlay. Stacy could answer better.
Yeah, well, and we'll ask where that eats, what fund that goes to.
Yeah. So if you, can you go up and show the budget amendment? There's an explanation here. Yeah. Half of the, if you read that, half of all district sales tax revenue generated or captured in the special allocation fund has been created, Branson Landing tax increment financing plan, so.
I think it would be healthy to, we'll get an overview of how this works.
Are we broadcasting today?
Yes.
I think it would be pretty good to explain to the folks that are watching in on that, who is the recipient of the funds that are dispersed.
Yeah.
How far was this person supposed to come? Were they flying them in today or what?
Let John do it. I've not heard that.
So you can address the board here. Okay, Jamie, you're on.
Okay, let's,
This is Jamie, she's, you'll hear her, but if you could ask her the question again.
Jamie, the mayor asked for the question of where the transfer ins come from, what fund that accrues from?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Stan, you're
It's
gonna have to do
muffled
it.
for me.
Jamie, what
Yes.
the question is, where the transfer funds into the TDD, where those funds come from?
To the TDD. The TDD is part of the TIF. So there's a TDD on the Branson Landing. And those monies come from the TIF, the draw from the Branson Landing TIF.
It's the
So
transfer
I
in.
believe it's 1%, and so all that money will go to the TDD that will go in to pay the debt service. Is that the question you're asking?
No, ma'am, it's the fund transfers in. There's $3,900 that's being transferred in. What's the source of those funds?
$3,900.
Yeah, it says fund transfers, transfer in $3,900
Yeah,
in 2020.
the transfer in comes from the TIF. So all the money comes in, all the TIF monies come in from the general fund. So all the monies that are collected through the TIF, the monies go to the state. They come in through the general fund. The general fund redistributes the TIF monies. Then those monies are taken from the various sources and they are used to pay debt service. So when the monies come in, it's all a matter of the TIF. The TDD, that's what it was set up to do in the first place. So it is a flow through from the funds back out so that we can pay the debt service.
So basically, all the money in this fund comes through the TIF. And it's just, it gets allocated to where it needs to go.
Yeah,
To pay the bills, so to speak.
it's, yes, that, and the TDD is just one portion of several that we use to pay that debt service.
So the state sends us the total tax dollars, and then we separate it out to the different TDD, basically.
Yeah, so there's different sections. There's a CID,
Yeah.
there's TDDs, there's different tax revenue sources, all in that same TIF section. And you know what I can do that will help you? We have a spreadsheet that shows the various inflows and the various sections for the Branson Landing TIF. If you want to look at that, I'll be happy to have somebody send that out to y'all. But it's divided into section of the sources of income.
Why don't we get Stacy to do that? You sound miserable, and I'm hoping, did that answer your question, folks?
I think, so I'll try to paraphrase. So the state collects all the taxes, they send it back to us, and then because we've got these different TIF districts, we have to, the state doesn't do that work for us. We have to separate out the dollars to the different TIF districts.
Yeah, we send it to the trustee, the banking trustee, and then the bank takes it and segregates it and pays all the debt. So, yes, that's exactly right. If I heard you correctly about segregations, yes.
I think the confusion, though, is the revenue. If you take the sales tax revenue or the total collections, then that gets split between the EATS line item and then the debt service line item. And then in 2020, there was a line item of $3,900 for administrative. And then at the bottom, it says fund transfers in is $3,900, which it looks like is paying that administrative line item. I think that was what the confusion was.
And I'm sorry, that's exactly what it's doing. There is an administrative.
Stan, would you speak into the mic, please?
Sorry, it's over here by the phone. That's exactly what it's doing, and I apologize. There is is this one 2%, Jamie?
Yes, most of the admin fees are 2%.
That 2% is what the city gets paid basically for managing all these funds. That's what that is.
Okay, with the city receiving that as an admin fee, where is that being transferred in from another city fund?
No, it gets transferred in from the TIF, the tax for managing the TIF.
TIF pays that.
The TIF pays it to us, yes.
So it doesn't come from general revenues, it comes from TIF revenues.
Comes from TIF revenues.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jamie.
Basically, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm not wanting you to talk as much, too much, because I can tell you're miserable.
No, it's just fine. It's basically to offset the finance department's cost of doing business because we manage all of that.
And it comes from the TIF funds. They basically the TIF funds are basically paying the city the 2% administration fee. It comes in, and then it's allocated into the administrative fee from the TIF.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Branson Hills has one. All the TIFs, even the tourism tax has one.
So this would show in our general fund as a deposit. And then is there a connection with this offsetting our administrative cost, our finance department cost?
Well, that's a very good question because in the past, what we've done is we've brought it in as a revenue source. And so if you recall, we've set up a new TIF in the past. Now, what we've done and what we need to do is set up a contra to offset the payroll cost. But as of right now, it's a revenue source for the general fund. And the finance department's costs come out of the general fund. So if you look at it that way, it's still serving the same purpose. Hello, sorry.
Okay, and Jamie, I apologize, I know you're not feeling well, but would you provide a brief overview of the EATS, economic activity tax?
The EATS, the economic activity taxes, is basically your sales tax. You have EATS and pilots. The pilots is your property tax, and the EATS is your sales tax.
So that's a disbursement. Where does that disbursement go to? Branson Landing?
It goes to pay the bonds, doesn't it, Jamie?
Yeah, 100%, yes. All the taxes, all the pilots and the EATS go directly to pay the bonds. And remember, there's 3 bonds allocated back to the Branson Landing TIF.
Okay, those dollar amounts are the same. So the EATS is, I'm assuming it's divided 50-50, right? Half goes to our debt service?
No, this is
Not for the landing.
yeah, the landing's 100%.
Yes.
Oh, that was a super TIF.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then, okay. So I know there's 3 bonds. So basically, other than the $3,900 administrative fee, the balance, the $1,318,000, $1,302,000 basically, that amount goes directly to debt service.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And remember, that's just a portion of the TIF. So, yep.
Mr. Mayor, I want to just ask her one more question. Jamie, I'm sorry you're not feeling good. This $3,900, I don't see it in the budget for 2021. Will that be paid out in the second half of the year? It just hasn't been invoiced, or it hasn't been paid yet?
The second half of the year. I'm sorry on that one. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check that out as far as the budget goes, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't have that information in front of me, but I will be happy to get it for you all.
I hate to make her suffer any longer.
Yeah, I know. Procedurally, could this board postpone approving this budget until we can get more information on it?
It would We certainly could, but it would probably be easier if we go ahead and approve it because of the difficulty of opening both meetings and everything. And then if you can have an explanation, and if you need to amend it, change it, you could amend it later.
So what you're suggesting is if we approve this, maybe on a future study session, when Jamie's feeling well, we could go through this and get all of our questions answered.
That, or perhaps she can provide it by email and it'll be enough to answer it for you. And then if you have additional questions, I think you could open it back up and amend it as needed, or if it becomes an issue.
Okay. Is the board okay with that, approving this?
Is that okay, Administrator Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So then we would need a motion.
We actually have a motion, a second. We're on discussion, and
Oh.
we need a voice vote at this point if you want to proceed to approve it as presented, the budget as presented.
Okay. I would support that motion to approve it with the understanding that we'll get future clarification, so it's already been motion second, so we're at the point of voting for it.
That's correct.
Any other questions from the board on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye. Opposed, same sign? Ayes have it. Okay, now we're going to adjourn, having no other business to come before the Board of Directors. That concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors for the Branson Landing Transportation Development District. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We'll call a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. The meeting of the Board of Directors for the Branson Landing Transportation Development District is adjourned. So we will now return to the Board of Aldermen study session.
And you have a quorum, and it's an open meeting, and you're ready to go on to your other items.
Thank you. So item 3, we'll have a presentation of the neighborhood water line infrastructure rehabilitation, and that'll be presented by Kendall.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board. On behalf of the Utilities Department, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you our neighborhood water main rehab information. Get the clicker working.
It's not going for you, Kendall?
I've got a green one if you want to use it.
I can do it from up here. if
We've
that's not
all
working.
wanted to be able to do this at one time or another.
Yeah, clicker's not working.
Kendall,
You got it? Okay, Chad, go ahead, next slide, there we go. So causes, I'm going to begin with, causes of water main leaks and breaks. So we have two classifications. We have a natural leak and then we have an artificial leak. So your natural leaks are something just occurring either by like ground contraction or it could be expansion due to temperature change. And then also there's life cycle of pipe materials as well that can cause natural leaks. Artificial leaks are more dig ups, impacts by contractors, digging into a line, or it could be a homeowner or a sign company as they're performing work. So I've got some pictures up here of some examples. So obviously downtown, when they was doing renovation of downtown, that's an artificial leak where a contractor hit an 8-inch main, caused an additional fountain down there for public viewing. And then we have some natural leaks as have occurred over the years in different areas within the city. Got a nice picture of this year in February when it was freezing temperatures. And then here's an older picture of actually MoDOT drilling through one of our water lines on 76. So there's different effects that come from water main breaks. Number one that's noticeable is the interruption of service, of course. And then we have loss of water. It takes energy and time to produce that water. We want to be good stewards of it. Introduction to air in the system, which is often a challenge in neighborhoods of removing the air out of the system because of lack of fire hydrants. The other item is anytime you reduce the pressure in a water system, you take a chance of potentially introducing or moving of foreign debris that's stuck within the pipes, and also the water quality can be affected. So there's some provisions we have to take when we have leaks. For example, we have to flush the system extensively. We actually test the water after we have the leak. We run it through our lab and make sure we don't make sure the water samples come back within standards, and we documentate that as well. Next slide, please. So what are our goals with neighborhood rehabs? Click it again. So we have improved water service. That's the number one. I'm not going to say the number one goal, but that's one of the goals. What that does for us is, again, it reduces our water interruptions, and it's going to improve our operations and maintenance abilities as well. So with that, so how are we going to improve our water maintenance and operations? What it does is it'll add additional valving to the system. It'll create mains, so we have less dead-end lines. Those dead-end lines are problematic for us. We actually have to flush those on a regular basis. One of our water treatment plant operators goes around in the middle of the night when everybody's asleep, and they flush water lines or flush hydrants. So what that does is it keeps the water flow moving, where typically a household, number of homes is not adequate enough to turn over the water and keep the chlorine residual in the system, so we have to flush at night to keep that water quality up. So again, with adding the number of valves to the system, it also allows us to shut down portions of the main and affect less people. So that's one of the goals, is to add additional valving. So next slide. And then another major goal would be fire protection. If you go within our subdivisions, you'll notice a lack of fire hydrants. And reason being is a lot of our lines and subdivisions, Stan's favorite size pipe would be 4-inch mains and smaller. We have, believe it or not, in the Lucia Ridge area here, we have a handful of homes that are fed off a 1-inch line. So they have a reduced volume of water. We have 2-inch water mains. It ranges from 1-inch, 2-inch, 4-inch, and then up in those areas. So with the fire protection, or with this neighborhood rehab, we'll potentially get additional fire hydrants meeting our current standards. It will increase water volume for fire flow numbers, and then also potentially increased ISO rating for the area, for the community. So that's a benefit for the community itself on insurance rates. So next slide. So an item that is coming up here soon is a lead and copper rule revision. So this is a federal level rule that is being reviewed once again. It originally was, effective date was going to start in January of this year, But when the new administration came on board, they had postponed it for additional review. The target is in December to set the effective date. What this does is it allows us 3 years to build our capacity to handle, to basically come up with a plan, come up with funding, and come up with inventory of lead, copper, galvanized services, feeding residential homes, businesses throughout our system. So this is a federal mandate that's coming down. Along with that, there's provisions in there where we're responsible for also making sure when it's identified that say a residential home has a private service line that is lead or galvanized or copper-based. It also requires us to ensure that those are replaced. It doesn't require us to fund that, but it does require us to enforce those replacements. So this is a new rule. It's still being reviewed. There's some possibilities for some changes there. We won't know more until later on in the year, but I'll keep you posted as this comes down.
Hey, let me ask you something.
Yes.
That could be a little costly to the homeowner.
Correct, yes.
Needless to say. Do you already have a encyclopedia, let's say, in the community of such lines, supply lines? I know the older homes at Cantwell Addition, who knows what they were done. All of the new ones were done, I think, on Schedule 40 PVC.
So your question is very relevant. So the inventory part of this program is a challenge for nationwide municipalities, water systems. The means that we have are the information that's available in our records. We don't have a whole lot of information available. Other than when we've been in there in the past, we try to documentate what we've replaced or fixed or repaired, what was installed at the time. Typically, anything after 1984, it was legally mandated it couldn't be lead-based.
Right.
So we can check records of when homes were built and to give us an idea there. The other method is to actually just go around and physically dig up the service lines at the meter pits and determine what type of pipe is located there. That is very problematic. It's also very costly in time as well. The other factor is if you do not know what the water pipe is made of, then it has to be considered as a lead pipe. All the unknowns are considered as lead until you prove otherwise, as part of this rule. With that, we've already started our efforts in building an inventory. We're using our GIS system to help in that. They actually have an application where Tara Norback, our GIS guru for utilities, is working on collecting that data and plugging it into this app, which eventually we have to make it public, where homeowners can go on the website, pull open their address, and find out the information that we have on hand.
A question, can you do that run directly off the meter, your supply line and your exit line, which would indicate what it was as it comes off the meter? It's pretty much your supply line.
To a point, yes. Where we run into some discrepancies is if there was a leak there previously, they've just patched a portion of it with, say, PVC or some service tube. It doesn't give the full picture of what's between there and the home itself. So same with from the meter back to the water main.
I take it with this mandate, it's an unfunded mandate, and the city's going to have some costs there.
Correct, yes. And part of that is a lot of entities are really sparking interest in this America rescue plan with a new administration, and as we're waiting on those details to come out, this is one of the hot topics in the grant funding that's coming available, hopefully, so.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is with this being a federal mandate, sure like to keep our eyes and ears open for any grant funding.
Yeah, it's actually on our top 10 list that Jamie has provided to the state already as
Great.
part of our efforts when we went up to the state capitol to seek out additional fundings.
Did I hear you say that some of the costs would fall on the homeowner?
Yeah, evidently, if it's between the meter and the house.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
that is correct, yeah.
Wait a minute.
So Kendall, while we're on this, so there would be no such thing as grandfathered in or picked up during a remodel or new construction?
That is correct. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Flint, Michigan situation.
Yeah.
This is where it was driven from. Flint, Michigan had some serious issues. Fortunately for us, our water is not real aggressive. What happened in Flint, Michigan was they changed their water source. It was very aggressive water, which actually started to leach lead material out of the pipes, as well as like galvanized pipe. Galvanized, not lead-based, but what happens is lead particles get trapped within the pores of galvanized, and so when you get aggressive water, it starts leaching that out, and then it feeds it on into the home itself. So Flint, Michigan is a big driver in this, and that's why it's come down from the federal level, and there's no grandfathering in on this. It's a
Right.
mandate.
So anything existing non-compliant. So if we're opening up the ground, are we going to react to that and try to do changes since, as we go through projects?
Yeah, so with the water main rehab, what our goal would be to do for subdivisions would be to go in, create a looping water main system with appropriate number of valves for us to operate and maintain, appropriate number of fire hydrants for fire protection, and then also replace all service connections up to the meter itself, replace meter pits, setters, reuse our meters until their life cycle is ended, like I said, with our meter change-out program. As part of that goes is when we identify these private service lines on homeowners, then they would be required with this new legislation to, I believe right now it's set at replace their service line within 45 days of us replacing ours.
I need you to know, that is going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yep.
I think, from my, just one opinion, we really need to look at this as not going to each homeowner and telling them they need to pony up $1,000 or several $1,000s to replace the water line that they've had. Boy, we really need to explore options other than the homeowner paying for this.
I appreciate that comment. I've tossed this around in my head, and along with Mike Gray, when he was here, we'd have extensive conversations, not only about the private water service lines, but also the private sewer service lines, which I'll get into that here in a little bit as well as part of this program. But it is a significant burden on property owners. As far as ideas that we've discussed, part of it could be a partnership with the city. It could either be some sort of where the city fronts the money for the service line replacement as part of our whole project overall, and then the customer pays it back in a portion on their water bill every month, or the city could take on the cost 100%. That's where I'm going to seek guidance from you guys, is how would you like to proceed with this when it comes time.
Stan, do you have any input on this?
I have tremendous input on it, and that's why Kendall is here to start, so you can see what this actually is going to cost. And then we're going to have to figure out a way to come across to pay for it, because I'm in the same mind thought of you as you, that I don't understand. I get aggravated. I don't understand how the federal government can stick these constant changes in their system, which it's not that I don't agree, because they need to be safe, but they need to help us pay for it. And it's not fair to the citizen that is just out here living their life that happens to live in an older home. So first, I wanted you all to see the overall cost involved, and then we're going to have to sit down and come up with a funding mechanism.
Well, I cheated and looked ahead, and I saw what the total cost was.
It's terrible. Yeah, so we are going to aggressively continue to attack for grants, and we're also, I just think it's wrong to put that up on our citizens.
Yeah. Whew. So if you would, please keep us up to date on the progress of this. And when do you think, has this already come down as a mandate, or it's getting ready to come down?
Well, the bill's already been drafted, and it actually was set to have a signing back in January, but they postponed it. When Biden administration came on board, they felt that the need for further review. There's two sides of that. There's a side that wants to be more restrictive, and there's a side that wants to back off a little bit from it. But I don't think, I see it staying similar to where it's at right now. I don't see it backing off any, just because of the severity that what happened in Flint, Michigan, and the number of people and customers that got sick from it. My thought is it will either get more stringent or they'll stay where they're at with it. But the target is sometime in December for a signing of the legislation.
Wow.
What we are doing as a utility department, we are keeping up to date through webinars and classes and information that keeps rolling in. We keep grabbing hold of those every time they pop open on our notifications, just to learn as much as we can to help us prepare for it. And it's, like I mentioned earlier, that we have already started our inventory count, gathering the data that we have on hand and starting to build that program, so we'll be prepared in this 3 years. So.
Yeah, I can see the true value of knowing what we're dealing with, because today we don't. But this also isn't a Branson problem or a Missouri problem. This is a national problem.
Correct.
And so this may be a need for an outcry to our legislators to print some more money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Kendall, I don't know if you threw it out, but did they come up with a timeline on, a sunset date or?
So if they sign the bill in December of this year, then we have 3 years to build our plan, build inventory accounts, and find the funding available to help in replacements as they come up. So there's some triggering mechanisms in there. There's a whole lot of details that's got to get worked out yet. There's maximum contaminant levels that they are wavering on, I would say, that they are trying to narrow that down. So we have to test for lead on a regular basis on our water system. Our samples come back good, but we do know as a utility and with past repairs, we do have some leaded services out there within these older subdivisions. We have a lot of galvanized lines as well.
We get our act together in that 3-year period, then there is an extension of time to be compliant?
The extension of time basically is if you reach a maximum containment level, your testing samples reach a certain height, then it triggers some items into place. And then not only that, but if a customer, say, was to replace their service line, because they had some issues, say they just had some leaks, and it was identified as being copper, lead, or galvanized material, that automatically triggers us to have to replace our service line within 45 days. And then not only that, we have to actually supply them, the customer, with a pitcher filter for 6 months for them to have clean drinking water for 6 months. So there's some details there that they're still working out, but there's a lot to this, so we're trying to process it and work through this.
Just, people are going to make money out of this, of the ditch witchers and the plumbers, because this is not sandy loam, this is not clay, this is rock, and you don't have to go very far down into it. And some of these older homes,
Yep.
it is what it is.
It's going to be a challenge. Okay, ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right, Chad, go ahead. So what I have before you here is our Branson water main leak exhibit. So what this is a heat density map. You can see in the darker purple areas, this is where our problematic areas are on leaks. So using our GIS system, we enter in information and the frequency of leaks, and it outputs this density map that shows where our problematic areas are. And just to kind of highlight, kind of a little fuzzy, but so 76 is through here. Of course, 65 is up in here. So you've got our downtown Lucia Ridge area, you got Parnell, Iserman area, Hiawatha Heights, Murphy Addition out there. Of course, Cantwell's across the street a little bit.
Yeah. Your pointer is working great.
So citywide, we have so we focused our information on the last 10 years. That's where our data is stronger in. We have data back until 1994, but it's sporadic. So we just focused on the 10-year data that we knew that was pretty strong in accuracy. So out of 203 main leaks, 165 were located in neighborhoods. So that's roughly 81% of our leaks are happening in neighborhoods. Also, citywide, we have 307 service line leaks. So this is from the main to the meter on the city side, the city's responsibility. Out of those 307, we have 216 neighborhood leaks. So roughly 70%. So the majority of our leaks are in the subdivisions as of right now. Okay, next slide. So now I'm going to start focusing on individual subdivisions. And here you see a close-up view of the density map itself. Click again, Chad. So in Lakeview Terrace, which is the Parnell and Iserman area, we have a trend map or trend chart for the last 10 years. It shows water mains and service water leaks. So we had roughly 25 in the Lakeview Terrace area over the last 10 years of main leaks, and then 30 service line leaks. And down in that area, we have 2-inch and 4-inch and 6-inch lines in this particular area, made up mainly of thin-walled PVC and transite pipe itself. Transite pipe has a life expectancy of approximately 50 years. So we have reached that life expectancy of that pipe. What happens is it starts getting brittle, starts popping holes and busting.
So when you say thin wall, we're talking less than Schedule 40?
Correct, yeah. So it's a Class 160 pipe.
160? Yeah.
Yeah. Very thin pipe. The installation practices at the time, there was not much bedding or cover. And with the rock that we have in our area, that tends to be the #1 cause, we believe, with the expansion and contraction from heat, cold, rain, dry. I'm sorry?
Tree roots.
Tree roots as well, correct. Next, click there. So what we have here is an overview of the whole subdivision. And in red is what we're proposing to replace. So the current length of the main in the subdivision is 2.45 miles. Proposed rehab length is 2.26 miles. If you click again, which is a rough cost of $3.6 million for the Lakeview Terrace area. Now, along with that, I'm going to bring to your attention when we do a water main rehab in a subdivision like this, it's going to affect entire paving of the subdivision. It's hard not to interrupt the actual paving in the area without, most of our water lines are in the middle of the street, of course, and you got the crossing service lines. So it's going to take a mill and overlay of the entire project as well to handle this. So this is just mainly the cost for the water main itself and service line replacements.
And this does not include fire hydrants?
No, this does include fire hydrants.
Does?
Yes, so
Okay,
it'd be 8-inch main, fire hydrants, valving, service lines, and meter pits. Along with that, there is stormwater projects that as part of Keith's and Ben's master plan for this particular area, roughly over $1 million, $1.1 million of stormwater improvements that they are projecting to perform in this subdivision. And also with that, when you spend the time and the money in a subdivision, the one item you want to look at as well is the private sewer services. So currently, right now, the property owners by code are responsible for their own sewer service from the structure all the way to the tap on the main. But what that does is you have these older service lines that are very problematic in these areas. Tree roots, they're old clay tile pipe, they're leaky. They allow groundwater to enter our system. So for example, during rain events, we can see our Compton wastewater treatment plant flows go from 3 million gallon a day average to 12 million gallons a day. And that's all due to infiltration through these service lines. So generally, customers who have service line issues are very hesitant about replacing their service line within the public right-of-way because it's very costly on them. They're responsible for the dig up. They're responsible for the paving that goes back in that area as well. So my suggestion or my recommendation would be to, like the service lines for water side, to work with the property owner, either one of taking over their ownership of the service lines in the right-of-way areas themselves and doing a complete replacement during this time period. Otherwise, we're going to have brand new paving come in, and then you're going to have patches in the streets, and you're not going to have your full lifespan of your mill and overlay like you normally would.
Question for Stan and the city attorney. Are these legal issues where somebody has to deed over this stuff to do? I mean, it's got to be some paperwork done somewhere.
We would need to change the ordinance, but it's nothing that, there's nothing that would prohibit us from doing that. And kind of what Kendall mentioned before, when I haven't known about a lot of this any more than you all have. And when it got brought to my attention, you all have heard me rail for years now about the infrastructure of this city. And
It's old.
It is old, and it's just like anything else. It has to be maintained. And I truly believe probably the ultimate solution we're going to have to come up with is kind of what Kendall said a minute ago. We're going to have to work with the homeowners and accept some of the responsibility for this because we want to do it right when we do it. We don't want to have to go back and continually rework what needs to be done. So when we start looking at things like that, then there is a responsibility. I think the city does have a responsibility for the sewer system. I think we have a responsibility for the water system. On that side of it, something else we've got to think about is that we also have 2 other water systems in this town that we have to work with to make sure that those residents are being serviced properly as
It
well.
appears to me that we need to be having pretty intricate discussions with our United States senators and representatives on some monies back to, because our tourism fund can't bear the cost.
And I apologize, and I didn't, it's quite frankly why, I can't think of the young man's name, I really wanted him to come to this meeting, because the tourism tax in and of itself, we needed it desperately, but you're correct. The tourism tax in and of itself will not be able to pay for all of this and the other things it needs to pay for. We are going to definitely need assistance from our federal partners that are mandating these things.
How about this county issue that's on the ballot? Does the county contribute any money back into?
The sewer tourism tax?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the county sewer tax. They do contribute money back into the municipality. It's been on a case-by-case basis to this point, but this issue is not just going to be the city of Branson. It's going to be out in the county as well, so it will even stretch their funds as we move forward.
You just the bearer of bad news today, aren't you, bud?
I am today, yes. But if I'm not communicating these concerns and needs at this point in time, I think I'm not doing you guys justice, so.
No, I think we knew this.
And that 3.6 projected cost, that doesn't include any paving or nothing, right? That's just,
Correct, yeah, and the paving would be on top of that as well.
And this is just item number one.
And so as we work through these, I'll try to be a little quicker because I know I'm taking a lot of your time. But I figured a lot of the questions are going to kind of come through on this first one, and then I'll just work through the numbers on the next several here. But as you also notice, before I move on, I have this as number one. So this be number one on my priority list as far as for water main rehabs, based off of the number of water leaks versus the current footage of water main in the area. So I did a ratio.
Those are older homes down there, correct, too?
Correct, yes. There's a lot of lead-based stuff, lead-based services in this area as well.
We have the media here, so let's be clear. You've chosen this as number one. The mayor lives in this neighborhood, so it wasn't chosen because the mayor's there
No,
before it hits the media.
no, honestly, it's based off of the total number of footage of water main within the subdivision, based off of the number of water leaks. So I came down to a ratio of water leaks per footage of water main. And that's why you'll see some of these subdivisions have higher quantities of water leak, but there's higher quantities of water main within the subdivision. So I had to come to some sort of a determining factor there, and that's how I went about doing that.
I was very young when they were putting it in. I won't talk about how long ago that was. But Lakewood Estates, I believe they use Schedule 40 all throughout that facility.
There's actually some transite pipe down there.
There is.
As well, actually quite a bit of transite pipe. And when I say transite pipe, it's an asbestos cement pipe. It's very safe for drinking water, but it's very problematic for our maintenance. So when our utility crews go in to replace or repair a section of the water main, we have to use respirators to protect the lungs of our crews and keep it wet, because if any kind of asbestos, you don't want it to go airborne. So as long as it's in the ground and wet, it's safe for use, but it is problematic for us.
You use the A word, right?
Yes, I did.
He used the A word and safe in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I have a question, Kendall.
ma'am.
Any of these projects that we're talking about today, were any of those submitted to the county to get dollars for?
Not at this time, no.
So
This
just
is,
the new projects were submitted to the county, but none of these projects were?
so with the projects that we typically submit to the county for sewer sales tax are lift station rehabs, also treatment plant upgrades, and yearly we put in for what's called our sewer rehab program. It's where we put liners within the sewer system to fix clay tile lines, to prevent roots from growing in and water from entering in. So we have, for the Parnell and Lakeview Terrace area, we have applied for monies in the past to fix sewer lines in those areas. It does not, I would say it also helps in the connection tap of the service lines. So we actually, when we put a liner in, there's what's called a lateral connection there that we install a liner up into the private lateral, say 18 inches to 2 feet, and that takes care of that tap connection, which is a big problematic area for I&I to enter in right there. So we do spend a little bit of money towards the private side at this point with the county sewer sales tax.
Mr. Mayor, you disturbed me with something you said about those pipes down there. Was that acceptable city practice at that time to allow that type of asbestos material to go in there?
Yeah, that's why they call it transite pipe, because anytime you say asbestos pipe, it tends to throw some alarms. But it was used extensively throughout the nation back in the 50s and 60s. It only has a 50-year life expectancy. What happens is it starts getting brittle, pops holes in it. which means we have to excavate larger holes in the street to get back to pipe that's strong enough for us to make a patch or a repair to. Just a quick note on Lakeview Terrace. So the private sewer service lines, I estimate around $160,000 to replace private service lines within right-of-ways. So this would be taking it from an average distance per home and replacing that service line connection up to the right-of-way with new pipe. All right, Chad? So I'll work through these quickly. Again, a density map. Go ahead. So Murphy Addition is our next on our list. Again, 25 water main leaks in this particular subdivision, 32 service line leaks over the last 10 years. Go ahead. Here's an area map. Everything in red is what we would be proposing to replace. A portion, all the yellow water mains, part of that's along 76 Country Boulevard, which will be replaced during the 76 revitalization project. And then there's a portion of lines to the east there that's already been replaced and upsized. So current length of water mains, 4.5 miles. Proposed water main rehab length of 2.93 miles at a cost of, Chad? $4.7 million. Stormwater projects in this particular area range roughly around $800,000. Okay, next slide. Number 3 is Hiawatha Heights. 21 water main leaks in the last 10 years, 15 service line leaks. Go ahead, keep going. Here's our service map. We've got 4.1 miles of existing main, approximately 3.5 miles of rehab length at a cost of $5.6 million.
Just real question, real quick. How long would service be off if you're all working on one area? Is there a way to keep service on for some of these others? Because you're talking about the loops, would you assist that?
So the looping mains and valving, appropriate number of valves, will help reduce future impacts on shutoffs. So right now, typically in these subdivisions, we have to interrupt service for roughly 3/4 to almost the whole subdivision whenever we have to shut water down because we don't have an adequate number of valves.
And how long is that service down?
It can range anywhere between 4 hours to 12 hours. Depends on the nature of the leak, the size, the location, the depth of the pipe. If there's rock underneath of it, we have to break rock out.
Yeah, I think what you're answering is currently when we have breaks, what it's down, I think Alderman Skanes was asking, when we go to replace these, what's going to be the downtime?
Oh, when we go to replace it, well, our goal would be to realign the water main parallel with the existing water main. We'll try to limit interruptions as much as possible, but there'll be some on and off periods there. Typically, we can install the whole water main system and get it tested and then do connection points. Say on one end of the subdivision, we'll connect it up to the main thoroughfare, like on 76. That'll charge the whole new system, and then we can start with our looping connections, be able to, when we install the valving, we'll be able to keep everybody in service, do the new connections on the looping side, and limit the number of downtimes. It's hard to tell at this point how many of them there will be, but there will be some. It'll be a significant interruption to these residences for an extended period of time here as far as construction interruptions, but with the actual water service and tie-ins, typical tie-ins could take in a matter of between 2 to 4 hours because we prep everything, get the pipes ready where it's just minimal impact as much as possible. And there's always the option of performing those in the middle of the night. We have done that before in the past where we've done midnight work. Folks are usually asleep, and it's usually less interruption on them at that point.
Thank you.
So number 4 is Gateway Subdivision. Got 12 water main leaks over the last 10 years, 7 service line leaks. And current length of water main is 2.75 miles, proposing just under 2 miles of replacement at a cost of $3.1 million. Next is Lucia Ridge, number 5. 34 water main leaks, 55 service line leaks over the last 10 years. At a little over 8 miles of current water main and proposing replacing 6 miles. And you can see the yellow in there, that's existing larger diameter pipe that we will not replace. And then the projected cost of $9.5 million.
Kendall, so and all these things are basically going to happen as a result of this change coming down from the federal government, right? I mean, I understand they probably need to happen. I'm just, in terms of.
So I wouldn't put the whole, I wouldn't say it's entirely the lead and copper. It's the lead and copper, we can go about it 2 different ways. We can either replace the system as an entirety, which, because of there's other issues involved with fire protection, life expectancy of pipes that are failing, other issues there. As far as the lead and copper rule, basically the way it's designed is that if you identify a lead pipe, you have to replace it within a certain time frame anyway. So you could go out there and just start replacing service lines. You're going to cause interruption in the roads. You're going to have all those patches in place. The time and money that's spent towards that, I think it's a better dollar value to go through and redo the subdivision itself.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And with that lead and copper rule update, there is, they're trying to narrow down the percentage of service lines that would have to be replaced annually. So I've heard 1.5% of your entire system. It could be 3%. They're wanting to really ramp it up and get these water systems to replace these unknown and known lead service lines. Lucia Ridge, just real quick on that. I have it as number 5, but I just want to say that these aren't set in stone as far as priority. As we identify our lead and copper and galvanized piping through our program here, it may kick this particular subdivision ahead of some others, just for the efforts of trying to reduce the lead and copper and galvanized service lines. There is a lot in this particular area itself. Okay. So downtown is more north of Main Street and east of Veterans Boulevard. So we got 20 water main leaks in the last 10 years, 43 service lines. As you can see by the amount of yellow on this exhibit, there's been quite a bit of replacement already done by the downtown revitalization. We still have a little bit more to do down there, and then mainly focused in the north of Main Street area that needs to be replaced. So we got 4.8 miles of water main existing, and proposed rehab is 2 miles at a cost of $3.2 million. So West Branson Heights, 13 water main leaks in the last 10 years, 12 service line leaks, 3.61 miles of existing, 1.9 miles proposed at $3 million. Branson North. We've had about 6 water main leaks in the last 10 years, 10 service line leaks. As you can see in this exhibit, the yellow line is pretty predominant through the center of the subdivision. We actually, back in 2016 and 2017, replaced a significant portion of water main by installing a 12-inch water main loop from the Cahill area up into Branson North. And what that was is an effort to not only help the Branson North subdivision with fire flow, but also help with north part of Branson, like the Mercy Clinic. So that loops around back to the hospital. So it also helps the hospital as well by providing a looping system. If something was to go, for example, we had a sign company that broke a water main down at the Branson Landing. So we was able to keep the hospital in water by having this looping main. We shut the main off down at the bridge at the landing and was able to backfeed water through that and keep the hospital in water. So that was a very good improvement for us. So the remainder part of Branson North, we're looking at about 1.23 miles of rehab, and that would be roughly $2 million. And number 9 comes in at Cantwell Edition. 10 water main breaks in the last 10 years and 12 service line leaks. So in this particular exhibit, you can see the newer section of subdivision, Hideaway Hills subdivision, that's included in the Cantwell area. All those mains are upsized and appropriate for that area. The majority of it's in the Cantwell area itself, and that's 3.6 miles of rehab at a cost of $4.9 million. So we're down to the summary page here, and so an overall project of just water mains came up with a total of $39 million, almost $40 million worth of water main. We could, again, that's almost 25 miles of water main itself. Typically, we'd expand this project duration out in 18 to 20 years, allowing a couple years per subdivision for design and install. So
With
again,
the exception of the lead pipe.
I'm sorry?
With the exception of lead pipe.
Correct, yes. That's something that we'd have to really seriously consider here. I believe as you get further west town, it's newer facilities, you will run into less likelihood of the lead, galvanized, and copper issues. So I think our main focus would be the Lucia Ridge area, Lakeview Terrace, Murphy, potentially Murphy, Cantwell mainly as well, and Hiawatha Heights area would be our major concerns. And again, we talked a lot about the other items that come into play as far as the water service lines on the private side, the sewer service lines on the private side, the stormwater issues that currently exist, again, paving, and then the water main itself. Our paving list that Keith Francis has, our master paving list, there's priorities of streets that are coming due for paving. Him and I have had some conversations, and I think we both agree that even though they're a priority at this point, I think we need to seriously take a look and wait on paving those streets until we look at a subdivision as a whole. I think we should tackle a subdivision as a whole, renovate the subdivision to give us the maximum lifespan that we can with the materials. For water mains, with PVC, typically they're saying 100-year lifespan. So we'd be setting the city up for a good duration of time on the water main system. The paving, I think Ben can help me here, but I think paving, roughly 20, 25 years worth of paving lifespan on that. So there's a lot to consider here. I know I've thrown a lot at you. I know it's a sticker shock effect, but I think it needs to be known that we have some issues that we need to seriously consider, take a look at, do some planning, approach your legislators, your senators for funding, and we'll work through it as we can.
It's just sobering, very, very sobering.
I had a question. A couple of times during your presentation, you mentioned, sign companies are doing stuff, and every now and then will have a boo-boo and hit a line or something. Do they hold any, do they bear any financial responsibilities when something like that happens, or do they just walk away and go, y'all
So
take?
I actually had Tara do some research for us, and she's done a fantastic job of gathering data over the last 20 years. everything she could scavenge from paper files and transferred it into electronic files and plugged it into our GIS program, which I need to do a shout out for GIS. That is a very valuable tool. The number of what I'd call artificial leaks by contractors, property owners, would be around 55 leaks in the last 10 years. So it's not as numerous as natural leaks. So what tends to take place there is, there's a Missouri 1-800 dig right. So you're required by state law to call for a locate. So in some cases, they may not call for a locate. Some cases, they do call for a locate, but they let their locate expire. Paint marks aren't as fresh on the ground, and they dig and break our mains. So they are held accountable. I have done some billings to those companies for replacements, repairs, loss of water as well. And then as well as we have missed some locates. When I say missed, we have incorrectly located some lines because we don't have the data available on where exactly the water main is located at. So along with this subdivision rehab, part of our efforts is to use our GPS equipment, our survey grade markers, and pinpoint the water line as it's installed, gives us better mapping. We use GIS system to track that. So I'm putting a plug in there as you look at your capital items. The GIS GPS units is very critical for us of capturing that data and trying to prevent those episodes in the future.
So that is a standard practice? I mean, if a contractor knows they're there and they still mess up and hit the line, then they should be responsible for reimbursing that?
Yeah, we bill them for it. One thing I should mention as well, I think it's important, is as we do these water main rehabs, this will add additional fire hydrants and valving, which is good for the system. However, it does put a burden on our staff time. So last year, the state of Missouri passed the Water Safety Act, where we actually have to annually inspect every hydrant that's on our system. So we have to have a staff go to each hydrant, operate the hydrant, flush it, record that we inspected it, and documentate that. We also have to, and that's every year for hydrants. We roughly have around 900 hydrants, almost 1,000, well, between 900 and 1,000 fire hydrants currently, which is nowhere near enough to meet our standard spec as far as spacing goes. So we'll be adding a significant number of fire hydrants and a significant workload to our staff. Hopefully it's offsets some with water leaks versus time spent towards inspection and maintenance on the hydrants itself. Now valving, we actually are legally required to exercise a valve every 10 years. So just to bring it into perspective, we have right now roughly around, I think, Tara, 3,000? Yeah, 3,000 valves on our system. This will add a significant increase to that number. Right now, we're achieving a roughly around 6% on valve exercising, where we need to be at 10% a year. And on fire hydrants, we're roughly around 23% accomplishment, where we need to be at 100% for the year.
Wow. I have a few questions. One is a request. This is obviously a shock. I think it's vitally important to inform the community of what we're facing. And I'm not sure the best way to do that. Maybe this could be on a link on our website and maybe put out some, like a public notice, sharing with our community what's going on and what we're facing. So I think the more we can get them to understand what we're dealing with and get their buy-in of what we're faced with will help. The iOS rating, and I'm really reaching for straws here to find any nugget that we can. But I know when the iOS rating is improved, it will reduce residential and commercial insurance rates. Is that a fair statement? Will or should? Will. So maybe as we progress down this road and maybe we take it area by area, maybe we can gather some information of how that would affect the ISO rating. So maybe we can provide a little bit of positive to the communities that we're working on. Boy, I know this is a huge dollar amount. So the monies, and I know we're going to be looking for several sources. So Stan, would you just confirm that legally we can use the infrastructure portion of our tourism tax for, if we need it?
That's correct, we can.
Well, one thing you did was you ruined a lot of appetites, so we won't be needing lunch. I really appreciate what you just produced for us. It took a tremendous amount of work.
Well, I want to do a shout out to the utilities department as a team. So it falls all the way down to our water distribution sewer collection crew that spend day in, day out collecting the data for us. They've been on board. Their approach now is to make it better for the next person that comes along. And they've done fantastic at gathering the data. Data comes to our GIS division, to Tara and Curtis, and with the without the GIS system, it would be very challenging to manage this data. And then again with the office staff, Stephanie and Tara and myself working on the presentation, it did take some time. I did postpone it a month, but I felt like it needed to be postponed just because the amount of data that needed to be gathered to put this together. So.
Yeah, well, kudos to everybody who put effort into this, because that's a lot of work to put that together. Thank you for reminding this board how important it is for GIS. So as those come up as budget items, it does provide a tremendous amount of value. Sometimes we don't get a chance to see the value that it provides. Any other comments from the board? Stan, you just get us to write a check for $40 million and this will all be good.
Actually, you probably need a check for about $75 million.
I'm working on Tanger.
Well, hearing no more comments, thank you again.
Thank you.
So next time I see your name on the agenda, we'll just put it off.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Stan. What sort of fund do we have set aside for future instances such as this? Because this is a lot for this board to take on. It would seem like previous boards, previous years would have recognized this as coming like a train coming down the track.
I'm working diligently. I can't fix the past. It happened.
I mean, moving forward, we're going to
Moving forward, though, we have got to develop, and this is what Kendall has been tasked with, besides this, was, and every department, we develop a plan, a replacement plan, so to speak, for maintenance, ongoing maintenance on a 10-year rotation, say. Let's just use 10 years. We go into a neighborhood and we make sure that the pipes in that area, and really, from Kendall's perspective, the water lines are going to last quite a while, the new ones. From Kendall's perspective, the next big challenge are the sewer lines and getting all of those lined. And we have to have a plan where we're doing so much every year. And if we don't do that, then we are not doing what we should be doing, and that is making sure that the next board that comes along doesn't have to deal with something like this. So that's what they've been tasked with, is to develop plans going forward for replacement, whether it be the fire department, the police department with radio systems and fire trucks, or sewer lines and water lines, street pavement, the whole 9 yards. It's just, there has to be a plan where we don't come across having to incur these gigantic amounts of money. They need to come in smaller bites.
So as long as I've known Stan, he's been saying, we need to put money aside. Our utility lines are aging, they're gonna need replacing. He's been saying that over and over, and Kendall put a dollar amount to it. If there's no more comments, let's move on to number 4, review of business and community services, presentation from Joel.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board. This is an activity that we've utilized the services of ETC Institute out of Olathe, Kansas, 4 times over roughly the last 13 years or so. The city had been doing community and business surveys roughly every 3 to 4 years. That got condensed down to every other year. However, with COVID last year, it was postponed until this year. We look forward to getting these out into the community and getting feedback. We believe they're a valuable tool with strategic planning and visioning, and so we, again, look forward to having the results from this. As I mentioned, there's 2 surveys. One goes out to citizens, our community survey. The other goes out to the business community, our businesses. And I'll kind of touch on some of the goals when they send out those surveys of what they're trying to achieve. First, with the community survey that we're going to go over first, they send it out randomly across the board throughout the city, and they'll actually GIS locate it when they make final presentations to show you how random it was across all of the city. And their goal is to get 400 households to respond, and that gets them to their 5% precision with a 95% confidence. And again, these guys are some of the best in the business. They work with over 1,000 municipalities across the country, and really have a good clue what they're doing. So that being said, one of the first steps, I'll back up for a second before I go on. This will be an agenda item on your next board meeting for their contract to be able to do these services for the community. We did go out for an RFP several years ago, and they were the one that was picked through that process. They're the cheapest, the best, and we had opportunities to extend our contract with them. So the extension of their current contract is what's coming to you all at your next meeting to be able to do this. So kind of the first kickoff, if we decide to move forward with this effort, is to go over the previous surveys, in this case 2018, and see if there's any opportunities to improve them, or maybe ask a question we didn't ask in the past. I just want to be very cautious, and they would say the same thing if they were here. These are the same surveys we've been utilizing year after year when we do this, and it's critical to keep that consistency so that we have something to compare. If we tweak these surveys too much, we lose all that opportunity for comparison. So that being said, we still want to look for areas for improvement to make them better. I'm happy to go through these as quickly or as slowly as you would like. We've highlighted our changes in red, so if you just want us to point out those and talk about those, or if you want to go through each individual question again, I'm kind of here to respond to your wishes on how you'd like to go through this.
I think it would be efficient if we, because there are several on the board that haven't been through this process.
Sure.
So maybe if we can just look at like a page like that and just take a minute just to review the questions.
Perfect, yep. Yeah, the first page talks about perceptions of the city. You see a lot of the questions here are asking our citizen satisfaction with various services in the community, whether it's police, fire, parks. You'll notice we've added the quality of the building permit process. I'll point that out later in the survey. It was kind of isolated with code enforcement. We felt it was more appropriate to bring it out here because we really want to understand the quality of that overall process, and we thought this was a better place for it. And then number 8, the refinement there is, again, just to keep the same verbiage consistent with quality. That way we're not splitting hairs on what we're looking for. These, as question number 2, these are probably the most helpful out of these surveys with strategic planning, where we ask which are the 3 items from the above chart that you want the most emphasis of. That definitely provides what our citizens, what areas they want us to work on, what areas they want you all to focus on. So I point that out, and there's a couple more that I'll point out that we look to heavily when doing strategic planning. Again, the changes on this bottom area are simply to update the classification or the name of 76 corridor, and then be very clear on number 9 that we're talking about overall appearance of the entire city, just to be very clear. Keep moving. You can keep going. So then we start to break it down more in areas of the city departments, if you will. First with public safety, we ask 4 questions there, and then Parks and Rec, we ask several questions there. No changes to note. Just asking various satisfaction levels with various areas. Yes, sir.
Hold just a second on the one on Parks and Rec, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you.
And then again, there's one of those questions after the Parks and Rec section asking for 3 areas of emphasis. And those have been very helpful for Cindy and her planning over the years on where to give her attention and budgeting to. Communication, it's always been a good one to make sure we're getting the word out and how we're getting the word out. This seems to be the one we kind of manipulate each time we go through, just because technology and something inevitably pops up that wasn't available to our citizens the previous survey. In this case, we're breaking down social media to be more specific between the offerings of Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter, as opposed to just clumping those together. We may find out that one isn't being utilized, and so we could maybe stop our focus there. And we thought it would be a good idea, Mayor, to add number 12 there for the people note, just to see how many people are aware of that.
Yeah, because if they stop reading it, I'm going to stop writing it.
There you go. There you go. Trying to be helpful.
Question, Joel, and this is somewhat off the wall, but the situation about Facebook, are you talking about the city's Facebook accounts?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You're not going to get into Branson Talk and Branson Buzz.
No.
All right.
No,
had
this
to
would be
bring
the
that
city's
up.
Facebook account. That's right. So then we get into utility services. We had recycling on here as well as the bulky pickup. That's really not something the utility department takes care of. That had been a public works function. However, as you know, we don't have a recycling center, so no need to ask for that question. And the bulky item is another thing that's kind of been crossed off the list. So we thought it was appropriate to remove it from the survey.
One question on that. I know when we removed the biannual removing of bulk items, I heard an awful lot of feedback about that. A lot of our communities seem to benefit from that. And then when we converted it to, okay, put your refrigerator in your Toyota and bring it down to us, that had some comments. I'm wondering if we, as a board, if we wouldn't want to keep something to get a sense of how important it is. And I know we're watching dollars and pennies around here, but that was a benefit that the city provided that I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be more of a priority spend from a community point of view.
I mean, it could be as simple as a question as, have you used these services in the past? Would you use these services if they were available? I mean, it could be something of that nature if that's what you're trying to gauge from the community about.
Any board input on that?
Oh, yeah, it'd keep them throwing couches out and clay in my neighborhood.
I heard the same thing. I mean, I heard some of the same comments right up to election. A few people had mentioned, why'd they stop doing that? Because it was beneficial and they knew there was a certain day they could put their stuff out. So I did hear some of the same comments about that.
And again, we've utilized these services. If there's happens to be a one question that is a current topic that we want to know how the community feels about it, this is an opportunity to find out.
A way to word it, is that what you're saying on that?
Yeah, and we don't need to wordsmith it today. Obviously, we'll work with ETC as long as we know the desire is you all want the community's interest on that service. We can definitely, I think, put something together for you.
Because you're right, if that ain't there, they're finding somewhere to just chunk it in the woods somewhere. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, pay attention.
we can definitely do that. Number 12, it's labeled maintenance. This is largely public works. It's our taking care of our streets, taking care of our traffic signals, sidewalks, on and on, storm drains. So we had considered relabeling this public works, just to be more clear on that. Insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but anyways, just mentioning it. That's what we're looking at here under 12. And again, we ask what 2 areas you want us to focus on or need the most emphasis, so good knowledge there. Regional cooperation, this is one we've had the last several surveys, just to get a sense of what our community's perception is on how well we work with surrounding governments, or even the school districts included in that. 15 is police. You see it had been code enforcement, and that's where we moved the building permit process line from out to the first page. We also removed the satisfaction level with current sign regulations. The city had utilized that question in the past to kind of build up the momentum to redo the sign code. Now that that's been done, we really don't believe there's a need to ask that question any longer, especially under the police topic. And then consistency with code enforcement, that's always a big part of code enforcement, is treating everybody the same. And so we believe it's very valuable to find out what, again, the city's perception is with that point.
I think Alderman Cooper would like to amend the campaign sign ordinance. Go ahead.
You mean picking the signs up?
I think he only lost about 50% of the signs he put up.
Maybe I didn't read the rules well when I put those out. That could have been me.
I'm sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. 16, one that's near and dear to our heart, is about future planning. Again, we utilize these surveys for many reasons, including strategic planning, and there's a lot of components within here that have really given some focus to efforts long-term. So we want to keep all 15 of these for comparison, definitely over the years, to see where people's emphasis are changing and their interests. And then the last round of questions here, 18 and on, it's really trying to just gauge the people responding to these surveys from an economic standpoint, from a sociology standpoint. And then we also, I got a little ahead of myself, but we also asked the customer satisfaction on number 20, just making sure we're doing good customer service. The results have always proven up to this point that we provide a high quality of customer service as compared to the other municipalities that ETC works with. And it's good to have all the departments listed to know if there's anybody that's really shining or somebody that needs to do a little bit better. The one change this year was to add you all. Obviously, you hear from citizens and businesses quite often, and we just thought it would be good for comparison's sake to include that in all the others. And then the one thing that we had a difficult time over the years connecting the dots on is this change with 20B. We weren't asking which department they specifically dealt with, so how they were relating the 5 questions below to which department. But if we ask what department they contacted most recently and then give us their responses to those 5, it helps identify where the issue or the success is specifically, instead of not being able to discern that through the results. And then 21, overall ratings of the city, pretty general there, but good information. And then this is where, from 22 on, this is where we get more demographic information on the people responding, economics of how much they make in their household income. We did want to add another category to get a little bit more distribution there between the respondents. And then we always leave open-ended questions at the end for people to comment to. And again, just reviewing the results from 2018, I mean, the amount of comments we get is incredible. 10, 15 pages of comments from all the respondents. It's really good information if you have the time to go through it and look at it. And again, the 2018 surveys are still available on the city's website for anybody to review those results. And we'll definitely do that with this effort once it's complete as well, is to always have those available for the public.
When was the last survey done?
2018. It was at the end of 2018. It was, they roughly did those surveys in December, and they gave the final report in January, February of 2019.
What kind of return did y'all get?
So they met their threshold. I think they had 426 households. Once they hit their 400, that's really where they kind of cut it off, but if they get a few more in, they definitely utilize them.
And do y'all distribute these to every address in the city limit, or how does that?
ETC has their process. I don't know exactly what it is, but essentially it's, they have all the addresses in the city, and then a computer randomly selects the ones they send out. They mail them out with a survey and a return envelope inside. They ask you to fill out your survey and return it. If they don't get a response within 2 weeks or so, then they send you another one. And then if they don't, and they still haven't achieved their threshold of 400 households, then they'll distribute another bunch out to other households.
Do you know what that number is that they distribute the first time? How many?
I don't.
I mean, if they're wanting 400 back, are they sending out 3,000 or?
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head how many it takes to achieve that 400. I just know that they have to achieve that 400 before the results are accurate enough to present to you all.
I would say it's significant because you probably get a very small percentage of people that take the time to do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, sure. Real quickly, just popping over to the business survey, it's very similar. There's a couple questions. It's a little shorter. With the businesses, their goal is to get 200 responses. Again, to achieve that precision of 5% more or less and 95% confidence. Again, just real quickly, the same of adding the quality of building permit process over and adding quality to city communication. Number 3, adding the mayor's for the people note as another alternative for information. Classification of 76 and clarity of the entire city. And this is where some of the differences are here. It says on number 10, indicate your business had any contact, and they actually lay out multiple different avenues of contacting the city and then what the city's performance was. So it's a similar question that we asked of the citizens, just formatted a little differently, typically because businesses interact with City Hall much more than our citizens do. So that's kind of why we dive into this one a little bit deeper with our businesses. We also ask businesses about future planning, their overall ratings of the city. And then there's some open-ended questions there on 15 and 16 about how the city can do better serve and what do you like or dislike about having your business in Branson. And again, we always get responses. So it's you know it takes time for businesses to sit and write something, and you're appreciative that they do, and you get all sorts of answers. 17 asks to rate the labor pool. Again, this is kind of good comparison year over year when we have this data. Business impact. Just seeing this now, that Gondola is on there for tourists and employees on 3 and 4. That was obviously when that was still a relevant topic. Your all's thoughts, but we could definitely strike that to make sure our businesses don't think that that's still out there, I guess.
It comes around every 5 years, so.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's true.
What's your thoughts on the gondola? We've terminated any discussions. Is that right, Chris or Stan?
No, actually what it was they had the board issued we would not go, if somebody came to us with a possibility of another company of doing a gondola, basically we agreed that we would not do business with them. We would only do business with that first company that contacted us. For the past, ever since I was involved with them, and I understand it was well before that, the problem has always been they cannot come up with the financing. So it wasn't fair to the city to lock us into one company. We have told them the door is wide open still if they come up with their funding, as well as any other company now. So it's not that it's dead or anything, it's just nobody has approached us with the funding available to get it done yet.
So we just removed the exclusivity for that first.
Right, that was all it was.
Okay. So how does the board feel about leaving gondola on the list?
Mayor, I was chairman of the Transportation committee that came up with the recommendations to the city, and we studied that and brought all the people in, and they were talking $425 million to build that. So we couldn't make a recommendation to the board to buy off or chew off on something like that. I imagine people may like to see a gondola. There's no guts to pay for it, no funds. City had taken on Branson Landing and that debt down there, and the city just didn't have a belly to invest any more money. Just a little history lesson is all.
Any other input on gondola?
Be removed from
Yeah.
the survey?
That's the question is, do we want to leave the word in this survey going out, or do we prefer to remove it, is the question.
Do you need the EG? I mean, just is mass
I-
transit enough?
You're exactly right. I mean, we could remove the examples and
Remove the example.
not set ourselves into a specific type of transit.
Great suggestion.
That might just be the easiest,
Leave it at
and
mass
let each individual respondent kind of come up with their own solution.
Yeah.
Great idea.
I'm sorry?
Subway.
Yeah, there you go.
Makes a good sandwich.
It costs less than a gondola.
While you're putting the water lines in, you can put that subway
Yeah.
down there, yeah.
There you go.
Run it through the neighborhoods now.
Yeah, right there.
There you go.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, let's leave in the mass transit and just remove the examples.
Perfect. Easy enough. We can do
Everybody
that.
okay with that?
Yep.
And then just wrapping this survey up, we ask, again, just some generic questions to better understand who's responding, whether it's how many employees they have, what type of business they conduct. If you keep going a little bit further, Chad.
Is there anybody in Branson that employs 500 or more besides Silver Dollar City?
Well, and they're outside the city limits. I guess Cox and the school district probably come the closest. And how many years have you been located in Branson? Describes your organization. Where's your primary residence? And again, this would be the person responding to the survey from that business who they decide to respond. And then a final open-ended question about issues or suggestions. We always want to give them that opportunity because obviously 24 questions can only cover so much. So if there's something we don't know about, we give them that opportunity to share it with us.
Well, I think that's, I view this as a report card
Absolutely.
from the community. I think it's very important. I'm going to encourage those that receive it to fill it out, and I'll probably ask the board to do the same, because I think this is one form of communication where our community can tell us how we're doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And Joel, I know you mentioned it, but where did you say we could view the 18?
So if you go to the city's website, under the reports tab, it's about 2/3 of the way down on the right side, but it's under community and business surveys. And I think, I know 18s are out there. I'm not sure if 16 is out there, but I know the 18s are out there for sure. And again, the results are pretty lengthy. They do a great summary at the front of both of the surveys, and then they go into a little bit more depth. And then at the very end of the survey, that's where all the open-ended comments are if you want to go that far.
Okay.
And we started this in 16?
Actually, 2008 was the first year we utilized ETC to do these surveys. And this will be the 5th time with them.
I don't want to place a burden, but I think it would be, thank
There
you
you
for
go.
putting that up
Yeah,
there.
so 16,
16.
16 and 18 are out there. Yep. And again, 18, the benefit of 18 is it does have all those comparisons from all the previous surveys.
Oh, it does.
It does, yep.
Great,
So when they
great.
provide those results, they, in the graph, show the results from the previous 3.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. Yeah, and he, so once the results are provided and the summary created, there will be a representative from ETC that will come to you all either during a study session or a board of aldermen meeting. It's been done both ways, and present those results to you all and the community for that matter.
Very nice. And that will be on our next Alderman meeting. What cost of doing this? Do you know?
So our contract is around 21,000 with ETC. That's where we're locked in with them at the time being.
Any questions from the board?
Joel, the sign ordinance, a little bit of feedback of what you've been getting. We changed quite a bit of that. It's been pretty positive from what I've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more opportunities to address nonconformities that didn't exist in the past. So that was one of our primary goals, because there were so many people that were holding on to signs that were outdated and needed attention, and they were just kind of drawing down the community, and because they felt like if they lost that sign that they would lose some opportunity or some benefit to their property.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But now we've created, for instance, like the 76 corridor, there's zero setback. And so when MoDOT expanded that route and took away people's setback, we now have matched that. So it provides much more opportunity for signage along that corridor, as an example. And temporary sign process has been vastly improved, especially for our churches that kind of got caught up in the special event debate back in, 2013, something like that, and created opportunities them to advertise different events and things that are going on in the property. So yeah, we're hearing a lot more positives than we used to about the sign code, for sure.
Thank you.
I want to ditto that. I've been getting many more compliments on the new sign ordinance than the old one.
That's great.
And I know you put a lot of time and effort into that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And we had a lot of good community input to help shape
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was an enthusiastic aye. Any opposed, same as aye?
Thank you all very much. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I know some of you have been here almost every day this week, but I can't tell you how important it is to us to get to interact with you all, to show you, and then get your guidance on how we can make things work better.
Thanks, Dan. I do think these study sessions are invaluable. I'd like the board to, I don't know if I can say that. I'd like the board to think about 2019 and earlier. We had study sessions that reviewed the agendas coming up for that following Tuesday. I think those are beneficial, and if the board would like to resume that, please reach out. Thank you.